Hi everybody. This webcast is going to be showing you modeling a reading apprenticeship routine called Talk to the Text. And specifically what we're going to be working with is a couple of pages from the statistics textbook, specifically looking at surveys, pitfalls of a survey, and then a few pieces of terminology, and then a guided exercise. Okay, and so the way that Talk to the Text works is you're going to read along with the text, and if you were doing this by yourself, you would probably do it silently. But I'm going to be doing this, I'm going to be reading out loud so that you know where I am in what I'm reading. And then when you're reading, you will annotate. That means you will write on the document itself places that you have, questions, or if there's a word you need to look up later, if you just want to summarize that paragraph, if there's something that you need to ask another student or ask in class, you would make notes of that too. So basically, as you go, you're trying to make sense of what you're reading, you're writing notes to yourself about the kind of sense that you're making, and you're doing that in a way that will hopefully help you when you look back at this later. Okay. Now, ideally, you would do this with the entire section. For the purposes of this video, I'm just doing a shortened version so that you're not having to watch me do this for 25 minutes. So that's why I'm only doing the 2 pages, and hopefully it'll result in a shorter video. But if you were going to do this yourself, you would do this with the whole section. Okay, so I'm starting here with this, whoops, sorry, bumping into this here, with this section that says surveys. Okay. And also I can see that the way that this particular text is set up, there are these helpful headings, surveys. It's hard to see on the black and white copy, but this is actually a box right here in a different shaded color, so that tells me that this is probably important. And there's also vocabulary words off here to the side, important vocabulary that I can see. Okay, and then here's another text box, and this is a guided exercise. So it's got questions down this side and then answers down this side. Okay, so let's take a look at this. Surveys. Once you decide whether you are going to use sampling, census, observation, or experiments, a common means to gather data about people is to ask them questions. This process is the essence of surveying. So surveying is ask people questions. Okay. Sometimes the possible responses are simply yes or no. Other times the respondents choose a number on a scale that represents their feelings from, say, strongly disagree to strongly agree. Such a scale is called a Likert scale. So Likert scale measures level of agreement. Okay, let's see. In the case of an open-ended discussion type response, the researcher must determine a way to convert the response to a category or number. All right, so at this point, a natural question might be, how do we do that? All right. A number of issues can arise when using a survey. Some potential pitfalls of a survey. So pitfalls are the issues that they're talking about. Okay, let's see. Non-response. Individuals either cannot be contacted or refuse to participate. Non-response can result in significant undercoverage of a population. Okay, so they talk about undercoverage here, but they haven't defined it. Maybe that's a good thing to ask about. Truthfulness of response. Respondents may lie intentionally or inadvertently. Yeah, that sounds like a big problem. And that definition makes total sense with the vocabulary. I don't think I need to make a note about that. Truthfulness of response sounds like exactly what it is. Faulty recall. Respondents may not accurately remember when or whether an event took place. Okay, so they're remembering incorrectly. Yeah, I can see why that would be an issue with the survey. Hidden bias. The question may be worded in such a way as to elicit a specific response. The order of questions might lead to biased responses. Also, the number of responses on a Likert scale may force responses that do not reflect the respondent's feelings or experience. I think I know what they're talking about here. So this is when there's no, I'm going to call it a middle option. You know, sometimes you're doing those surveys and there's like a strongly disagree, disagree, agree, and strongly agree, but you don't see your option, your preferred option represented. So that's part of what they're talking about here. But hidden bias, it's talking about bias, but it hasn't really defined it. So if that's a word I'm unfamiliar with, maybe I should look it up or ask about it. Okay. Vague wording. Words such as often, seldom, and occasionally mean different things to different people. Okay, and that makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. Interviewer influence. Factors such as tone of voice, body language, dress, gender, authority, and ethnicity of the interviewer might influence responses. Okay, that makes sense to me too. Voluntary response. Individuals with strong feelings about a subject are more likely than others to respond. Such a study is interesting but not reflective of the population. Okay, so voluntary response. In this case, they're voluntary. They're saying that the people who respond are going to have strong feelings. Give responses. Okay. Sometimes our goal is to understand the cause and effect relationships between two or more variables. Such studies can be complicated by lurking variables or confounding variables. And then it goes on to define those on the next page. So for the purposes of keeping this demonstration short, I was going to do 2 pages, but it took me longer than I thought to get through this first one. So I'm not going to go on to the second page right now. But I think you can see how this works. So you're just doing a very careful read through of what's here and then making notes to yourself about how you're making sense of the text that you're reading. And in these early chapters, you'll find that it's maybe not as difficult to make sense of what you're reading, although it is a lot of vocabulary. So if you struggle with unfamiliar vocabulary, these early chapters might be tougher for you. But as we progress throughout the quarter and the readings themselves, and especially the technical mathematics, as that starts to get more complicated, this talking to the text routine can really help you deeply engage with what you're reading and make effective sense of it. Plus, it tells you, where you need to go back and ask questions later. How do we do that? Ask about this. Another helpful thing that you can do is highlight areas that you have questions about in a separate color. So I might highlight these with like a blue highlighter or something like that. Hopefully you found this helpful, and you'll have a chance to give some responses in the discussion post that follows.